I want to talk about the migrant crisis, which has gone from kind of bad to worse. In the last week, it seems to have reached kind of peak insanity, doesn't it? From putting people on a migrant barge in Dorset, only 15 as opposed to 500, to then removing them from the barge because they discovered Legionnaire's disease, which is something which occurs in many, many different places, and it doesn't always involve shutting something down. And I'm told as well that they even tested for it before they put them in there, so God knows what that was about. And then we had the incident at the weekend where there was a capsizing of one of the boats, which was massively overloaded with people, 70 people on a dinghy that's supposed to carry 20, no life belts or life jackets of any kind. We then read this morning in the Times that there was a migrant clash on the Calais side where people were shooting at each other before they even got in the boat. I mean,
and these weren't the people smugglers.
No.
These were people who wanted to get on the boat.
Right. So they've got guns.
They've got guns.
So they're coming to Britain, possibly carrying guns, possibly with ill intent, and yet the lefties are saying, but we must welcome them all.
Yeah. It's a humanitarian crisis, we're told. Yeah.
Really?
It's been a very interesting weekend.
Yeah.
You know, normally the migrant crisis kind of just rolls on.
Yeah.
But there have been a number of really interesting revelations this weekend, one of which is the fact that these people who are seeking to come to the United Kingdom have been armed, clearly have criminal instinct, if not antipathetic instinct towards the United Kingdom, number one. But the really big takeaways for me this weekend start on Sunday morning with that boat capsizing off the coast of France. And what's really telling for me from that is that the whole suggestion that the French are policing their shores to prevent these people from getting into boats, and that we're right to be paying them hundreds of millions of pounds. It's going to be close on $1 billion.
Yeah.
That whole narrative was blown out of the water, forgive the pun, on Sunday morning.
Right.
Because what you had was these people coming into the water. The minute they were in the water, they had French naval escort.
Yeah.
So the French Navy knew they were about to launch these boats.
Yeah. And so they're just watching them.
They were watching them. They followed them for a few minutes when they'd gone about 4 or 5 miles, capsized, and then you have British boats, RNLI, coming into French waters to help with the rescue. Fair enough, I get it, people need rescuing. But instead of then taking them back to French shores, which was the nearest point of depositing them, they brought them back to the UK.
Which you would also think, under the rules of engagement as medics, surely you take people to the closest
nearest
point of relief, don't you?
Absolutely.
Right.
So what that tells me is that there's no genuine attempt being made to police French shores. There's no genuine attempt by the French to honour the deal, the terrible deal that Rishi Sunak has done, paying them hundreds of millions of pounds to effectively do that job. Yeah. And we are complicit in this because our own boats went into French waters, picked up these people and brought them back to the United Kingdom.
Yes. This
is not a problem of us being able to patrol our borders. This is a problem of the British government and its services that report to the British government actually being complicit in aiding and abetting the movement of people across the Channel. This is much worse than we thought, Mike, and it's being revealed.
I mean, at least now those who would suggest that we have to, in their words, take our fair share, at least they're beginning to acknowledge that it is a global problem. Because there's no question that there are people coming into Western Europe from North Africa, from points sort of east in places like Afghanistan and Iran and Syria, But the point is that, yes, it's a problem for the whole of the European continent. However, it is not something that Britain should be solely shouldering, and that Britain should not be the end of the run, if you like.
But this is a problem made by Europe for Europe, and they've literally exported the problem to the United Kingdom, literally. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because they haven't policed their borders, and
well, they don't have any borders, do they?
Well, they have territorial waters.
Schengen sort of tends to suggest that. I mean, we've all done it.
Well, that's
I've driven from France to Italy. There's not even anybody standing in a booth to see who you are.
I was talking about their territorial waters, but once you get on shore in Italy or Greece, you're effectively on the Calais coast.
Yeah.
you know, it's a hop and a skip because there's nothing to prevent you.
Right.
If they stopped Schengen, if they started policing their own internal borders, you would slow this movement down dramatically. You would make the people smugglers' job that much more difficult, markedly more difficult. But the problem starts with Italy and Greece because they're not enforcing their territorial water rights to prevent entry of these boats illegally into their waters. That's what they have to do.
Right.
We have to adopt Operation Sovereign Borders, which is what the Australian government did back in 2013 and worked so well. They boarded these boats that were trying to come to Australia, turn them round and sell them straight back to where they came from. Deposited them back in Indonesian waters. We could deposit them back in Libyan waters or wherever
they took some of them to a designated island.
And designated islands. And
now, the critics will say, yeah, but that costs an awful lot of money. Well, and we're already spending 6 to 7 million a day on this problem.
Let's talk about the money. Last year, we spent £50,000 per head on housing, feeding, caring, including providing medical care for each migrant that crossed the channel illegally. 50,000 quid. The French spend £5,000 per annum. Of course they're going to come to the United Kingdom. They, you know, we all know that they're treated incredibly well because we've seen it. We've seen them, the treatment they get when they board a border force boat. We've seen what happens when they get to Pimlico, put up in Belgravia hotels, 4-star hotels with Wi-Fi, whether or not it's perfectly adequate from their perspective.
Well, on the Bibby Stockham 24/7 canteen, they're open all the time.
Taxi services, buses taking you backwards and forwards.
As they used to say in America. I mean, you know, it's unbelievable what's going on. And also, every single European country, bar this country, rejects many, many more asylum seekers than we do. We accept something like 85% of them in the end because they're sitting here for so long that they all get to stay. But in France and in Germany and in Spain and in Italy, the numbers and the percentages are far lower, like sometimes as low as 10% and below, where the rest are sent home.
Yeah, and what we're going to see if we don't get a grip of this problem and don't get a grip of it urgently is dystopia developing not just in our rural beautiful market towns and elsewhere in the United Kingdom, but right across Europe. Actually, they're going to have the problem in spades. Now, I had this morning. I was going. Can I mention a competing channel or
no?
No. Okay.
We don't mention them, but you can refer to them.
Yeah. Well, I was on another show this morning.
What were you doing over there?
I know.
I mean, for heaven's sake, did you get lost? Crikey.
Well, I was up against a guy from Amnesty International. I said, you don't get people crossing the German and Czech borders in order to enter Poland, and you don't.
No,
there's no
because guess
evidence.
What? In Poland, they have a much harder regimen. I know people from Poland, and they tell me that if you don't have a job in Poland, you don't get any benefits. You have to get a job, otherwise you don't have any money.
Absolutely.
And they're about to have a referendum, I believe, based upon the EU's ridiculous policy where they're going to try and impose a number on them of refugees that they must take. The Polish are saying, no, we're going to give it to the people and let them decide whether we want that. And the referendum will say, no, I bet you any money.
And that is absolutely right. That's what we should be doing in this country. There should be no social safety net. There should be no provisions at 50,000 per head for these people. We keep hearing the government saying we're going to deter them from coming. Well, paying 50,000 quid per annum versus the French at 5, that's no deterrence.
No,
that's attracting him into the United Kingdom in spades, as I say. The whole thing is falling apart. We need to recognise that our government's part of the problem. We need to recognise that the deal that we've done with France is part of the problem. We're actually rewarding them for bad behaviour. We need to take unilateral British action, which starts, as we've discussed on this programme before, by refusing to allow the boats to pass into our territorial waters in the first place.
Also, I learned last week that apparently, and this is possible to do, I'm told, because it's less dangerous water. I'm not sure if I agree with that. But apparently the Greeks are now doing this. They're pushing people coming from Turkey because a lot of the Kurds come from boats in Turkey. We understand a lot of the big dirigible dinghies come from there as well. They're physically pushing the boats back into Turkish waters and just going, you deal with it. And the
that's
Turks
right.
have to, because there's nothing else they can do.
And that is right. And if you take that approach in the United Kingdom, and the Italians in turn take it, and the Greeks in turn take it, and the Turks then are forced to deal with the problem, the Turks in turn will take that approach. And you will shut down this global illegal migration that's taking place.
Because they're doing it because it's easy. You know, I'm not saying that it's easy for the individuals who are travelling, but it's easy for the smuggling gangs because they know what they're doing. It's a very efficient model. They're incredibly good at it. They know how to move people from point A to point B, and they don't care what happens in between. They don't care who dies, as long as they're making money. It's like trying to stop drug smuggling.
And they're trading on our weak political will.
Yeah,
they're trading
they are.
on the understanding that we haven't got the courage to stand up to them.
Right.